Welcome on in, everyone, to Clay ShareCon Day 3. We are in our second morning session. Can you believe it? It's all going so fast this year. And we have Kathy Skaggs from Amico joining us again, and she's going to do geometric shapes with velvet underglaze transfers. So if you've missed Kathy's demos with us, you can go back and watch the previous ones. Yesterday's kind of melted my brain. It was so amazing. You have to go back and watch that. And today, I'm sure Kathy is going to have even more fabulous information to share with us. So let's go on down to beautiful Florida and see how Kathy's doing this morning. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Jess, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good. So today we're going to talk about geometric shapes because I don't know if you've ever tried to paint real crisp edge shapes on your pottery, but oh my gosh, it's so hard. Sometimes you have to paint it on and scribe back around it. Today I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to show you the supplies. I'm going to share my screen and then show you a little bit kind of overview. And then I'm going to come back to my desktop here or my work surface here, and I'll do a live demo thing for you and answer any questions that you have. So that's how we're going to roll this morning. So what I have here on my table is I love, of course, velvet underglazes because they're so versatile. You can use them anytime. People use them out of the jar. I talked to you yesterday and the day before about how to make inks. It's on my YouTube channel. Just search by my name if you're interested. So I either use them really liquid as watercolors, or I go to the opposite end of the spectrum and evaporate them, some of the water off to turn them into an ink. So right out of the jar, we're going to do something a little different today. What we're going to do is we are going to paint the underglazes onto sheets of newsprint so that we can cut the newsprint up, create shapes, and transfer it to our clay slab. So you need some fabulous velvet underglaze by Amico. We're going to talk when I get started about casting slip. Any casting slip will do that comes in cone 6 and low fire. I prefer the mid fire casting slip, even if I'm working low fire, because I like the color of it. It's kind of a white color. I go through a lot of plastic. So I finally broke down and bought me a nice, big, wide restaurant type plastic off of Amazon. It's great. Or I use a big, wide roll of shrink wrap from Home Depot because I like these big sheets of plastic. And to do these transfer processes like I do, use a lot of plastic. I try to reuse it, which the shrink wrap, it's great once you use it a couple of times because the clay makes it where it won't stick to itself. So, I mean, you can reuse it. It's all good. Whenever I get done transferring, I glaze with a couple of different things. If I am going to go cone 6, I use the Celadons. I specifically love aqua. I love glacier. I like any of the lighter colors. Sometimes I mix it with the mixing clear. I love that they have the mixing clear in that line because I can make them any lighter if I want to. So you do have the mixing clear. I also use HF9, which is a clear mid-fire glaze. And I like that too if I want a clear glaze. If I'm going low fire, if I'm using low fire clay, I can get the same look with Teacher's Palette Light. It's like a low fire Celadon. So it is translucent. Sometimes I do mix this with a low fire clear, LG10, low fire clear if I want it really, really clear, but a little bit of color. And if I want just a clear low fire, I go LG10. So I like having a little pop of color on top of my color because I can't get enough color. So those are the two I use. So I'm going to use some scissors to cut up my shapes. And I cut some up this morning for you to get ready. So basically, I'm going to cut up my shapes and then I'm going to transfer them onto a slab. So we're going to we're going to switch over to my screen share because I put a lot of this on video because I'm afraid I won't get it done in 45 minutes because I love doing it and I'll get sidetracked doing it more and more. So, excuse me, let me switch over and screen share. We will. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Nice job. Okay. I know I dropped a few hints, but it didn't, Oh well. Hey, it's live. Who cares? All right. So I'm going to run you through the process and then we'll do a little bit live. So this is what I do before to get ready. I take the underglazes, I shake them up, and I just paint on sheets of newsprint. I do use that Strathmore newsprint 300 series that we talked about yesterday. And sometimes I'll write the colors. Really, I don't even need to because what's great about the velvets is they're going to look like what they look like before and after they're fired. So I don't care. I also do some mixing on this paper. Like sometimes I'll do a little finger painting. I'll put different colors and I'll make it real cloudy and just do different mix colors. But basically, this is how I start. I paint on the newsprint. I let the newsprint dry. Then once I have it dry, I can cut it up into all these shapes. And what I like about working this way is since I'm a woman that really can't make her mind up from the beginning to the end, and I find that I like to work kind of as I go. This way I can cut it up, I can range it, I can scoot it around, I can get the patterns that I want before I'm committing to clay. Once I've cut them up, and this I cut with a rotary cutter because I've been doing a lot of sewing. So I use my rotary cutter a lot and a cutting pad. Now I'm going to put some casting slip on top of where I painted the underglaze. So I took the underglaze sheets, I cut them apart, arrange them, and now I'm putting casting slip on the side that I painted the underglaze. So we're going to put that on there. What that's going to do is that's going to re-moisten that underglaze and let it transfer. And a lot of people say, well, can't you just use water? You can, and I have for really heavy, dark lines, but excuse me. But what I find is that you don't really get that clear of a transfer of that material. So by using casting slip, and we're going to talk about casting slip and why in just a minute, but we're going to use casting slip and we're going to paint all our little pieces. And I kind of painted them in order of how I'm going to lay them down. So I knew I was going to do the black ones first. And I'm going to use a GR pottery form. I love these, and I'm going to show you what I do with my GR pottery forms in a minute. But I'm going to take my strips of black and I'm going to just start laying them down. And when I lay down that second strip, it kind of overlapped like an X. I hadn't really planned on that. And I'm like, hey, if I mess up once, I'm messing up 3 to 5 times, and people are going to think it's fabulous. Put some plastic over it, roll it with a pony roller, scrape it with a Cheryl rib. And then when I remove it, it's deposited all that black underglaze in this crisp geometric shape. Now, I am working on a moist slab, but not wet slab. So if you work on it right after you roll it, sometimes it's a little too wet, but definitely not even soft leather hard. I work on pretty moist slabs. So once you roll it, let it sit out a little while, smooth the surface so you have a nice printing surface before you start, and then you can start adding your parts. So I put the first layer was the black line, so I coated those first with the casting slip. Now I put casting slip on kind of my next layer, which is these, and I'm just laying them in place because I'm going to take a piece of plastic, put it over it, knock it down with a pony roller. I'm going to take my yellow Cheryl rib, which I love for doing transfers, and kind of scrub it to the surface. And because I had plastic on it, when I scrubbed it, it didn't mess up my black lines. So now, because underglazes are totally opaque, because they're basically a clay-based colorant, you're not going to see through them. You can overlap. And if I make a mistake, I'm like, who cares? I cut extra shapes and I cover up my mistakes. So if I have a little piece that comes off and I'm like, ooh, the color didn't come off completely, I don't worry about it because what I'm going to do is I just make extra shapes and cover them up. Once I'm done, very, 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 very important, do a last roll with your pony roller to get all the pieces really flush to that clay body. If you get little air pockets under them, you'll see it after you bisque. You won't see it now, but you'll see it after you bisque. A little MKM roller for the back. Love those MKM rollers. Now I'm going to cut it to the shape of my GR pottery. This is what I do with my GR pottery forms. I glue a piece of Pellon interfacing. It's about 1/4 of an inch. It's spongy. And I like that because I don't want that ridge, that inner ridge that's on there. So I just glue it down with Elmer's glue. I'm going to trace my form. And then one of my favorite tools, my pizza cutter, I'm going to cut about 1/4 an inch bigger because I'm going to drape it over. I want a little extra. Scissors, my other favorite pottery tool. And because I have it encased in plastic, I can just cut it up. And then after I do that, then I'm going to take a couple of pint jars and put my GR pottery form and take the plastic off the back. Very important because I'm whamming it and slamming it over that form. I want it to take on the form. I don't want to force it to the form. I want the clay to just kind of over the form. Okay, so I did that. I did this special for you yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I let it sit overnight on the form. Now, this morning, voila, I take it. I take let me see if come on, voila. There it is. Now I lift it off the form, move that stuff out of my way, peel the plastic off. Oh, I love these geometric shapes.
Oh, I love them too.
I look a lot at Matisse and cutouts and things like
Oh,
that.
yes.
Then I take the Sureform, and because it's leather hard, I overestimate on my clay so I can come back and make these beautiful edges so people think I made it right the first time, which I never do. And I'm going to shave it off. And then I even clean the edge again with a little green scrubby and some water. If we have time, I'll show you because I have it here in my studio. So now, boom, I'm ready to go. I bisque fire it. And then if I really want all those colors nice and bright, I'll put a clear glaze on it. You can do it at cone 6. You can do it low fire. The beauty of underglazes is they work at any temperature. So, I mean, really, you get such beautiful colors. Okay, so we're going to switch back. Let me stop screen sharing here. And let me show you a couple of things that I have on my tabletop. And as I'm doing that, Jess, do you have any questions for me yet?
We do. So some folks were wondering how thick the slab was that you used to make
1/4
your plate.
inch.
1/4 inch. That's the standard. And then some folks want to know if they can use any type of slip, or does it have to be casting slip?
That is the question I really wanted, Jess. So I'm going to tell you, you rock. Okay. Now, could you do this with your clay body slip? Yes. And what you would do is you would take your clay body, you would let it get totally dried out, like roll a little slab, let it dry out completely, bone dry, crunch it up, put it in a container. You don't have to pulverize it, just break it up and just cover it with water. You know, that makes the best slip because if you make slip out of leather hard pieces, those chunks never dissolve. I don't know why. So with bone dry, you cover it with water and you make this beautiful slip. Could you use that and it matches your clay body? Absolutely. But be prepared to wait about 45 minutes for all those little pieces to set up. Especially, I'm in North Florida. We are very humid and it takes them a long time to dry. Why would I use casting slip? I'm going to give you a little mini explanation, so stay with me because there's a party happening in this jar. What casting slip is, it has a very low water content because they use it in molds. And they want to pour it in, let it absorb to the side of the mold, and pour it back out. If you use a regular slip, like I just described, which I did in a mold because I wanted to show myself, it did not work, too much water. So what they do in a casting slip is they add something. Well, let me back up. When you put your clay in a bucket of water, you'll notice that the clay goes to the bottom and the water goes to the top. Why? Because all those clay particles are grouping together and they are flocking together and they're sinking. All right. We don't want that in casting slip. When you open a jar of glaze or casting slip, everything's already in suspension. Why? Because in casting slip, they add a couple of things. They might add something called Darvon 7, sodium silicate. They add a little something, something in there that creates an electrical charge between those particles, and they're so busy bumping against each other, they never sink. So you have far less water. What does that mean to you? Blah, blah, blah. Are you ever going to remember that about casting slip? Maybe not. Why does it matter? It matters because when you paint this on these little shapes, it is going to take maybe, I don't know, a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to dry. So there's a party happening in that jar. So I'm going to go ahead and get these and see if I can transfer these. And what I do, and then I'll ask if you have some questions, because I love me some questions. Man, look at this nice GR pottery board that Jeff
I know, aren't those nice? The work, I love the GR pottery forms. Yeah,
and I'm going to show you when I get done doing this, because if I blah, 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 I'll get off. We're going to go in here and we're going to add some casting slip on these pieces. Okay, Jess, while I'm doing this, what have you got to say? Have you got any questions?
If people want to know about casting slip and deflocculant and flocking, I have a little class I did, and I think about sheep flocking together, and your clay particles are like the sheep and they're flocked together and they're stuck in a lump, and you want to get them apart so they'll, you put deflocculant so your sheep don't flock, your clay don't flock. I don't know, anyhow,
your clay don't flock.
Their clay don't flock. So people want to know what's the difference between velvet underglaze and liquid underglaze.
All right. This is what I think, but please don't call Amico and says Kathy says. All right. But I'm going to tell you what I think. And then you can call they have a great technical assistant line that I didn't really use early on when I used Amico products myself a lot. Because I didn't want to bother them, but they have a couple of people that do nothing but answer questions about products. I think the difference is, and hopefully I'm right, is that the velvet under the liquid, the LUGs, like LUG black, which is what every potter should have in their studio. It's a phenomenal black. They're very color intense. I think they're a little bit more color intense than the velvets. That's what I think chemically, like in the jar thing. Have I ever noticed a difference? Personally, no. So I stick with the velvets. They're both great products, but I usually stick with the velvets.
I like the velvets because they are all like kind of a matte finish, and they're dry, and sometimes with the lugs, some of them can have a little bit of sheen to them. They will sometimes flux a bit.
Oh, really?
At cone 6, sometimes the darker ones, like the blacks and the cobalts, can. But I use the velvets. That's the ones I go for when I use.
I love those velvets.
They're nice. They're nice.
And they mix, like I use a lot of, I mix them a lot. So when you do your papers, you can mix them. What you see is what you get, like this radiant red. I'm like nuts over it. Or this intense yellow, get out of here. It's fabulous.
So we had a question. I want to just ask you this quick. So folks were noticing the casting slip you're using it says porcelain. And people want
Yes.
to know, is it why? Is there other kinds? Will that work with their clay?
Okay. I don't, no offense, but and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I never care. I mean, it seems like every time I even use a porcelain casting slip on low fire. I just like the color of it. But this is what I have noticed. If you, it does have some translucency to it, you know. So if you might want to get a mid-range white casting slip. I tell people to get whatever is accessible to them, because some people, their supplier has lots of different kinds of casting slip, and some suppliers only have one kind of casting slip. Maybe they just have low fire casting slip. Use that. Use whatever you can get your hands on. And like anything, experiment. Try it yourself and see. I use whatever I can get my hands on, frankly, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Well, yes. While those are drying, I want to explain to you what I did about my GR pottery forms, because I used these last year and people had lots of questions. So I want to answer all your questions. This does create a beautiful edge on a piece of pottery. And he has got the most fabulous forms that I have, like drawers of them. I love them. But I want to not have that edge. So I go to Joann's Fabrics or any fabric store. That's where you get it, number one. Number two, it's an interfacing. So just go to where the interfacings are. Then it's like a 1/4 inch thick, and it's like a sponge. I think really it was made for headliners in cars. So is that kind of thing. So it's spongy. I just glue it down with Elmer's glue. I was a little afraid to commit to that originally, because I'm like, what if I mess up my GR pottery form? But I've never gone back. I love them. I love it 100%. All right.
I'm going to have to try that.
Yes.
Because I love that softness that you've gotten on your pieces with it. So I'm going to be
Yes.
going to Joann's to get some Tellon, it's called.
Tellon interfacing.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to transfer onto this slab because I made a little boo-boo. I had a slab I was prepping last night and I left it uncovered, and now it's crispy, and my other slabs are too wet. So I do have something printed on the other side of this, so I'm not going to drape it on the form. If you have questions about that, you can go back to the video that I just showed. So just as a disclaimer. Okay, so again, I build very wet. I print on my slabs. I keep them encased in plastic until I'm ready to build, because this is what I found out when I first started ceramics. I was totally overwhelmed. It was like things would dry up before I needed them to. Things would not be dry enough. Like, this morning I ran across that. It's just like, that's the world of ceramics. Like, you have to figure out how to harness the material to get it to do what you want to do. So my method of operation is I have a slabathon day and I roll slabs. All the slabs I'm going to need for the week, and I encase them in sheets of plastic, and I smooth the plastic down to the top and bottom so that they won't dry out. Because if plastic is adhered to the clay slabs, I could keep them a couple of weeks before I really need to do anything with them. So I like getting all that grunt work out of the way. All right. Then I might spend another day decorating paper, like I might silk screen on it. And I have other videos on that. You silk screen on it. I paint it like we did today. I have fun just decorating paper and doing something that I have, so I have it all ready to go. Then the next day, I use the paper. I would do things like this or silk screen on slabs. Then I cover them back up with plastic and I stack them up in my studio, and I have all these beautiful decorated slabs that when I come in the rest of the week, all I have to do is build. So I found that that's easier, because I was the kind of potter that I'm excited about decorating. I'm going to do that. I'm excited about glazing. I'm going to do that. I'm going to throw on the wheel. I throw on the wheel a lot, even though I do a lot of hand building. I only threw on the wheel. And so I do some of that. So I found myself being very fragmented. And so you have to kind of figure out whatever process you're doing, how that's going to work for you. And that was a lot of blah, blah, blah. Why? Because I was letting my pieces dry. That's why. All right. So let me zoom up to the camera. This is what they look like. See how there's no shine, no wet. It looks like leather, hence the term leather hard. Basically, you've just covered them with a sheet of clay, a little piece of clay. All right. That's going to kind of reactivate the underglaze and make it come off. All right. So sometimes I use tweezers. Sometimes I use my pen tool. So I have them both handy. Some blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'd go either one. So Jess, you have any other questions for me while I'm kind of laying this on?
With the Pellon, folks want to know, do you go to the edge of the inside of the frame?
That's really a pretty darn good question. Look at this. See that little line right there I did with a Sharpie marker? I laid this onto my Pellon like this, and I go with a Sharpie marker and I trace this edge. I try not to use a ruler or measure things as little as I can. I try to.
Yeah, so I see you got a little bit, maybe an 1/16, eighth of an inch, tiny bit, just a tiny bit.
Maybe a tiny bit, because you can always trim some off, but you don't want to go back to Joann's Fabrics and get more. Okay, so I don't have to really adhere these. I'm just kind of laying them in place. And look at that. I mean, we're in real live time. So how long did that take for those to dry? As long as I talked to you.
Minutes.
That was it. Only a few minutes. Okay, let's turn this. Now, we're making this up on the fly in live TV, live videos. We hope everything works. I almost turned that one upside down the wrong way. It's easy to do. You do those things as you're working, and you're like, oh, darn it. Why do I do stuff like that? Hey, everybody does that stuff. I'm like into these.
I like them.
I know. I made them up. Yeah, I made them up yesterday. Just for you when I was shooting my videos.
Matisse, a little Kandinsky in there. I'm thinking I hear music in the background when you're doing this.
If you did Kandinsky and you put those shades and then added some line with an applicator, girl, art would be happening.
How about some Mondrian? We could just, oh yeah, I'm inspired right now.
Speaking about how dry or wet these are, I used to sit here and go, well, they're a little bit wet. Could I use them? No. What I did one time is I had to go in the house right after I had coated all these. I had to go in the house and they dried up. And I was like, I was right in the middle of shooting a video for something. I'm like, I do not want to make that again. So I just moistened the back with a damp sponge and they worked great. So if you're worried about, should I put them on, should I use them wet? Should I use them dry? Do not use. If you see a little bit of water, don't use it. No. Okay, we're going to try and get all this off by 10:45 because we are on the clock.
We're good. We got 15 minutes. You're on it.
Shoot.
Questions, lots and lots of questions about the plastic you use. That's the thing.
All right.
The plastics become the thing.
It's the littlest things in your studio that seem like a little thing that are not. So I'm going to show you those two plastics. Before I do, I'm going to go ahead and attach this because we want to be a success here on ClayShare.
Yes, it's of course going to be a success.
And we're going to take a pony roller, and I just laid them in place. So I'm going to kind of roll them down. So you can see that this plastic's kind of bluish color or greenish color, because this is what I use. It's shrink wrap from Home Depot. So cheap. Cleaning plastic works great, but I don't have that. So, and I don't
It
get
looks
my
like a
clothes
heavy
clean.
duty shrink wrap. Look at that.
I know,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
like
nice,
the
and it's
packing
very
wrap.
wide.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very
Or
wide and very
kind of
cheap.
like
And you
that.
can, like, I
Yeah.
use this. I've been using the same piece of plastic. You know, the other thing I like about it is when I peel these off and when I put it back on, see how it's kind of that greenish color? It's kind of like that aqua celadon. When I put it over it, I can kind of see what it would
Oh,
look like when
yes.
it's glazed. The other thing that I use is this. I got this from Amazon, and it's a restaurant one, and it's like 24 inches wide, 18 inches wide. And, you know, this took me forever. I was going to the dollar store all the time and uses a
Oh,
bunch
so
of
you were
little,
using that restaurant wrap. Okay, so that's
yes.
what you were using
And it's
before.
18 inches across, and I love that.
Hmm.
You know, if you're going to do some big girl ceramics, you got to get some big girl plastic.
Right? You need the big girl plastic.
That's right. Okay, now we're going to kind of, the two things I love to
I'm ready.
use. I like GR Pottery Forms. I love me some Cheryl ribs, and I love me some MKM roller stamps for the back. I'm not going to roller stamp the back of this because of reasons that you don't need to know. But the sequence of things is I put this on and I decorate the surface and I cover it back with plastic and then I roll the back. You would think, why are you doing that? It'll mess up your surface, but it doesn't. It works better that way for me. Okay, let's get everything attached so we won't look the fool on Clay Shericon.
That could never happen.
I don't know. I'm a big experimenter, and
It's always learning. It's always a
I don't
learning
have
process. It's
I
all
don't have a
good.
problem with it. Now I'm not going to dilly-dally taking these off. So I've got a little nick where I'm kind of nicking it with the pin tool, but you'll be slower on yours. But we got things to do. You got lots of videos to do today.
I
And
know we could just stop. We could just have you all day. I mean,
I love that. You know what? I can't
that
think of
wouldn't
a
be
better
fair. But
day.
you guys, we need Kathy to come to Vermont and we'll do a workshop
Yes.
here in Vermont.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's schedule it.
A summer workshop. We could put a big tent outside so we'll have space. Our studio is huge, so we have space inside. But I don't know. I'm thinking ideas going.
I love it. Let's do it. Get it on you know how it is. You have to get it on the, All right. So right there, oops, mistake. So what would I do about that? Oops, another mistake. I'm going to do it real quick because I think I can squeeze it in time wise. And if I can't, well, I'll just tell you what I'm doing. So if I have something like this, it's because I didn't scrub it down enough. So this is what I call a patch. Oh, yes. I love
Ooh.
those mistakes. I love me some mistakes. We're going to throw a little bit of casting slip on there, see if it'll dry in time. And if not, oh well. All right, but I'll tell you why that was. The clay sheet that I'm using was a little drier than what I really wanted. That could be the issue. Or if this happens to you, maybe you didn't scrub it. I was in a hurry and I didn't scrub it down enough. If you scrub it and it's still happening, because when I do this myself, if it's a piece I really want to keep, I lift it up a little bit to see if it's really transferring. If not, scrub, scrub, scrub. If that doesn't work, take a paintbrush and water and re-moisten the back of your newsprint and it will work. So that's kind of why that happened there. Okay. I'm going to kind of trying to get things to move along here. Now, hopefully that won't happen again. So usually what I do is I go a little bit at a time and see. And then if it happens, I just lay the newsprint back down and I make it happen. And if it still happens, then I can't believe I didn't have an extra shape because I always have extra shapes. This radiant red, so beautiful.
Oh,
And
red.
oh, red.
Red.
Now, again, I'm kind of nicking this up a little bit because I'm in a hurry. So, you can do it without getting those little marks on there if that bothers you. And if I have a mistake also, like let's say I have an edge I don't like, I never clean it up now. I wait till it's totally dry and then I might scrape a little bit away and doll it up a little bit. Ceramics is all about knowing what to do when it's wet, when to walk away from it. Look at that yellow. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now this is very important, and I'm going to show you this before we get off. This is almost the most important thing. Covering it back and take a rolling pin and knock it down. Why? Because you want those pieces to really be flush with the surface. Sometimes, and this technique is great, but there is a downside sometimes. Sometimes if you can create a little air pocket between the color and the surface of the clay. So it's important that you get everything down and get rid of any air bubbles. The other thing is you have to remember you just covered these pieces with a sheet of clay. So if there's a little edge that's sticking up, that is not good. Okay, so we'll just knock those down. Okay.
I love this step because I have never done this before when I do my own underglaze transfers, and I always have the bumps. Like I will do pieces and you just glaze over the bump. And yeah, it's glazed,
Yes.
but there's still a bump there. It doesn't feel as nice as it could. And I just assume that's just the texture. It's just how it is. But now
Yes.
I know to go to this extra step, put the plastic down, roll it back down,
Yes.
and it will be so smooth.
That's really important. The other thing is, please, when you go to do this for yourself, this is like we're making it look whiz bang, 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 do, go fast. But sometimes you do have to do this for yourself. Do a little sample one first. It may not work for you as well. Sometimes you do get those little blisters under the color. And you don't want to do some piece that's magnificent. Do a little sample, see if it's going to work for you. Paint on little small pieces of newsprint and just, excuse me, do a little sample because you will sometimes get little bubbles under the surface. And yesterday, all day, or not all day, but yesterday, I did try it on some wheel forms. But I didn't quite get it worked out. And so I will be posting a video on that because I took the leather hard cups and transferred, but the transfers don't want to go on like they do this wet clay. So I dunked them in water and put them on and they worked good, but they didn't fire so great. So I'll be working on that. Okay. We'll see if this works. Hey, it's only live TV and my reputation is on the line, but so what? All right. Now, you can't go like this because you'll mess up your surface, right? Now, if I was going to do this, I would always do it somewhere else. Like if I make what I call a patch, I'd go patch, patch, patch. I would do it. If I make a mistake, I do it 3 to 5 times. I make lots of mistakes and people think you're so creative. Instead of, just embrace it, make it happen. Okay, let's see if we can get that down. Okay. Oh, look at that. Mistake gone.
No mistake.
So if you would do that, I would do another one over here, and I would start sometimes this is just the start of what I do. Sometimes
I like the overlap.
I screen print over it or I add more shapes or, you'll know what looks right to you. And you'll see that I lost a little bit of color here on the plastic. So I probably would use a clean sheet of plastic to go back over this so I don't get a little ghost print. But if you do, don't worry, because when I if I use this plastic that's got a little bit of a print on it and I get a little on there, I don't get neurotic and clean it off. What I do is I totally ignore it and I can either sand a little off after it's bisqued, or when I put a Celadon glaze, I don't really even see it. So I really wouldn't worry about it. So Jess, last questions for me?
So folks want to know if you add anything to the underglaze before you brush it on the newsprint sheets to make your transfers from.
No, I don't add anything.
And you did 1 or 2 coats?
One really heavy coat. I'm a heavy glazer and a heavy underglazer.
So if you're a lighter underglazer, you might want 2 coats.
Gob it on. Don't even wipe your brush off. Just dip it in the jar. Dip it in the jar and gob it on.
Go for the gob.
Yeah.
Gob it.
But now what you can do is, if you're afraid you're not going to get enough on, this is the deal with underglazes. Underglazes can look great when you put them on like this. They can look great in the bisque, and you put a clear glaze on them, and not so great, might be streaky. If that happens to you, ditch the brush, pick up a sponge, and sponge on your underglazes, because that little sponge textured look is fabulous and looks a whole heck of a lot better than a brush stroke. I learned that in my high school classroom when I expected the kids to count the amount of coats they put on their pottery. And those teens, they just didn't count. I'd say, Joey, did you put 3 coats on? And he'd go, Miss Skaggs, does it look like I put 3 coats on? I'm like, Joey, were you holding the brush, brother?
Your answer is holding the brush. Oh my goodness.
That's true. You know that's true.
So question with the blue under the yellow, will that kind of come through in the firing? Will you see some of that?
No,
it'll stay out.
That's what's the best part of velvet underglaze.
And
they're a clay-based colorant, number 1, and you've put a slip on, number 2. There's no transparency, nothing there. Because you got to remember, velvet underglazes are more like a traditional underglaze, like a clay-based underglaze. I don't know what's in it. They don't let me know that, but there you have it.
It's a secret recipe.
Darn it.
You're not supposed to know.
I do have to say, yeah, go ahead.
No, finish what you're saying. It's.
I was going to say, I didn't realize really until I was working with them is how much underglaze they, how much mason stain, they're really loaded with color.
Oh, yeah. And mason stain is very
they're
expensive.
so loaded with color. I color my slips with them and everything. I don't order mason stains anymore. I just use velvets for everything.
So do you know if the underglaze sheets could go through a Cricut to cut out designs?
That person must be my new sister or brother, because I have set up to try. And I have a Cameo Silhouette die cut machine, and I had it yesterday, and I was like, Kathy, don't get sidetracked. You got some videos.
I wonder.
But if it does, how about I put it on my YouTube?
Absolutely. Please do. And then that leads me to the next question. Do you ever have the underglaze cracking off the newsprint?
You would think it does. So this is one that I did. And it does crack if it's pretty thick, I do keep it flat, but I'm always amazed at how little it does crack. Like on my silk screens, I can wad them up and they don't crack. This, I've got a pretty heavy application, so I can see that some of it's kind of chipping off. Frankly, I might crack that up, sprinkle it on my slab, and make me some art.
All right. So let's see if we got any more last minute questions before Kathy goes. This has been her 3rd demo with us this year, and so much information in every single one. Now, as Kathy's mentioned on her YouTube channel, she's got a lot of videos, so be sure you check that out, because she's so much more than what she's done here. And you're going to be at NCECA coming up.
I'll be at NCECA. I'll be at the Amico booth. And then also for your teachers, I wrote an online free curriculum. It's called amicoclassroom.com. You can find it on the Amico site, but it's a separate site, but you can find it in Amico. And it has a total Pottery 1, Pottery 2 free curriculum online that I wrote because I taught for over 30 years. And I took my curriculum and I made it beautiful, and it's all free.
Such a great resource. I love that. Oh, Kathy,
Yeah.
I wish you could stay with us all day long.
I do too, but we're fast friends and we'll
We
see each
are.
other
We are.
soon.
We're gonna definitely chat about future stuff. So this has been amazing. So many great new ideas today and in your demo yesterday and on Wednesday. I know a lot of folks are gonna have a lot of questions, so they can reach out to you. They can best reach you at.
I would either message me on Instagram, Kathy Skaggs Clay. My Gmail is clayopatra@gmail.com. Clayopatra, just like it sounds. You can email me. I don't work for Amico full time. I'm a resource. I love working with their products because they're phenomenal. And I spend a lot of time in my studio. So you're never going to bother me. And I love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Kathy, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for being with us for ClayShare Con 2024, our 5th anniversary.
Good job.
And,
you guys do an awesome
thank
job.
You. Thank you. And we'll chat about future projects together. All right.
Yeah.
So much information.
I know there was a lot happening, a lot of information that Kathy shared with you. That's why these will be available as a replay. So if you missed it, go back and watch over and over and over and over. And I took 3 pages of notes during this while I was answering all your questions and writing all kinds of things down. So, go back, read through the chat because I answered almost every question that was asked, or just listen to the broadcast and you'll hear the answers there. Of course, you can reach out to Kathy directly. And if you can't get a hold of her, you can reach out to me and I'll get you to Kathy. So either way. All right, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back on the hour. We're going to have Mako joining us. We're going to have some easy stroke translucent underglazes coming up next. So it's the underglaze morning, it seems. So we're going to go hang out with Mako in a few minutes. See you all then.